Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. And today we have a special guest. We have Arne Giske, who is the host of the Millennial Entrepreneur Podcast. He's a serial entrepreneur and a Seattle native. So he spends his days living the laptop lifestyle and building his and his clients' businesses, leveraging online marketing strategies. So let's give a warm welcome to Arne. So Arne, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So tell us a little bit about your background, because it's, when you think about that laptop lifestyle, it's not like, someone that back in school is like, so let's see, what career do you want? Where's this laptop lifestyle thing? I want to go for that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are attracted to it, but they don't know exactly what all goes into it.
Right.
The years of failing and learning skills and trying to make everything kind of work together is what brought me to where I am today. So I was never really a good student back in high school or even college until I started taking business courses. I was able to see that it had real world value, that people were out there and making huge success with all their tech startups and all these cool things that they're working on. So it was really attractive for me, and I just dived as much into the entrepreneur world as possible, through magazines, podcasts, apps, books, and I started networking with people online as well. And at the time, I had started my first business, which was a pedicab company out in Seattle, Washington. So I was carrying tourists around on one of those giant rickshaws for sporting events and tourist destinations, and it was a ton of fun. It gave me a solid foundation for sales, customer service, hard work, a little bit of negotiation, and it was just a great gig for part-time in college, and it taught me a lot, and it actually brought in some pretty good money.
And that's what I hear. If people really, having to work hard when it comes to the whole pedicab industry. Of course, when you think about it, it's something that also helps you stay in shape, because you never really look around and see someone who's out of shape running a pedicab.
Yeah, very true.
Just one of these things. So how else did you continue on this journey that took you from running a pedicab to where you are now, to running your business with a laptop?
So next up, I got finished up with college, and I was looking for new opportunities to grow as a professional, get some more skills, make some money. And I ended up looking at a handful of jobs through Craigslist. I had asked for a commission job because I wanted to get paid what I was worth, and I didn't want to get stuck in a flat wage entry-level job. And I ended up working at an insurance company that was a multi-level marketing company. And I didn't know too much about them at the time, but I learned very quickly what they were all about. And I didn't have a good experience at all. There's a lot of MLM companies out there that have great reputations, that take care of their people and have solid products and systems in place. And I did not end up at one of those. It was a very manipulative environment, a lot of lies to the other team members, to the customers even that I saw, and it was obviously not a good fit for me. I wanted to build a business, and that's what they told me that I would have the ability to do, and it just did not vibe with me at all. So I ended up leaving there about 6 months into it. I kept doing everything I could to try and make it work and look at the upside, but it just didn't. So I left. And then I jumped a lot more into online business. I did what most people do, and they look up on Google how to make a blog, how to start a website, how to make money online. I got all these crazy results, and all of that info led me to creating a WordPress site, really kind of diving into digital marketing, email marketing, and the ins and outs of online business. So I was definitely a newbie, but I came across a great opportunity to work with a friend of mine and help his development agency get some more clients. So they had trouble hiring a qualified person because they needed someone who was well versed with sales as well as websites. And there are very few people like that out there, and I fit the bill. So I started working with him, and then a few months later, I decided to start my own agency and hire some more contractors, go after different types of projects. And it was a very rocky road, to say the least, without much industry experience, but just coming in with the sales experience, and started picking up project management, more of the marketing skills myself. And I launched the podcast a few months after I launched the agency. So I was able to really kind of step up and step into the spotlight with this podcast that ended up being top 20 on New and Noteworthy on iTunes. And I was getting a lot of exposure. I was getting a lot of solid feedback, and people were enjoying what I was up to. So I was able to kind of use the podcast as a launch pad for my brand, for my personal brand, for my agency as well, and just start meeting amazing people that had all these great stories to tell, then pulling those amazing stories out of them. And I've been really happy to do that through the power of podcasting.
Oh, excellent. And it's an amazing medium to be able to reach people, because you think about it, how many other ways are you able to connect with people and ultimately share a great conversation?
Yeah, and one thing I love the most about it is you get a lot more time to be yourself and just tell stories. I'm a huge fan of storytelling because it shows so much about someone's journey that a blog post won't. And you hear the emotion in their voice, the excitement, the pain, and it's just a great medium for getting a solid chunk of information out of someone and learning what they're all about.
Right, exactly. It's when you think about all the different mediums out there, as you said, with podcasting, you can tell the story. But I think when you get down to the root of it all, is that it truly allows people to connect with somebody, because you're able to truly feel the emotions behind it. Like, wow, that was a really touching story, versus if they said the same thing in just a blog post, you're like, whatever, that just sounds like everything else. Versus like, oh no, they really struggled. Or like that was really tough, where they're deciding, do they eat or do they do something else with the funds they had left, or whatever their journey was. Mm-hmm. It's much more powerful. So now, since you launched your podcast, how has it benefited your agency over the past several months?
Number one has been the networking opportunities that came up through it, and really getting a lot more exposure for myself, my story, the community I'm building on Facebook, which is just over 500 now. It is called the Millennial Entrepreneur Community, and it's really been a platform for me to get credibility and authority and share my message with the people that need to hear it most and can benefit from it and benefit from my guest messages. So it's really just been amazing to see my growth over that time since I started the podcast in April, and meeting a lot of high-level individuals that wanted to collaborate with me through the podcast, through the agency, through what I'm up to, and just kind of piggyback on all the momentum I had.
Right. And I think that's the biggest aspect. It's the ability to connect. And that's what people don't necessarily see. It's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You know, someone might listen to a podcast and think, oh, that was a great interview, but not realizing that because of that one interview, it allowed for an introduction to XYZ person that's allowing you to create a course, or it's creating something else, another joint venture opportunity that comes out down the road.
Definitely. And it really helps with setting yourself apart and really having that personal brand, so that I become a familiar face, familiar name. So when I show up in different places, there's a higher chance of me already having some sort of a presence, or some people knowing me. And that has made it so much easier. So some of the biggest things I learned in sales and in getting on more podcasts is you want to find the easiest route as possible. So when you start putting out more content and linking up with all these other people and being visible and showing up in different places, it makes it that much easier for you to be credible, and people will start seeking you out for things. And it's a really cool feeling for someone as young as me, and it helps set my agency apart as well.
Right. Positioning is everything in today's world. You think about how many competitors are out there. If you look at with digital marketing, you can go to any city, it doesn't matter what size you are, and you're going to find countless numbers of agencies. But then when you look at how do you stand out, everybody has a web page. They should in theory at least have a Facebook page. But then when you start diving into it, not very many will have a podcast representing their brand.
Definitely.
So it truly helps you stand out. So now, in this whole course of things, obviously, as you've been focused on not only getting guests, but also getting booked, what have you found have been a really solid way to attract quality guests? Because I think for people who are getting started in podcasting, that's one of those issues, like, oh my gosh, who do I talk to? Because they might have went through their buddies on their phone really fast. We're like, okay, I need to expand outward now. Like, my friend's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. But then you get others like, no, they just won't do it. So how did you start attracting more people outside your initial sphere of influence?
Very luckily for me, I had a decent sphere of influence before I decided to start the podcast, just by being active in different entrepreneur Facebook groups. So I was able to link up with and introduce myself to a lot of different people and really kind of get a bit of familiarity. And then later, when everything started launching and showing up in more places, I started getting, tons and tons of people reaching out to come on the show. And it became more of kind of a hot ticket. They saw that I was up in the charts. They saw that I was having success, and not only that, but bringing in new business for my guests. Like I had somebody, a recent guest, message me the other day and say he got multiple leads for his agency as well after his interview aired. So it's really cool to see that, and that's really the power of podcasting.
Right. No, definitely. It's something it's incredible when people can do that, because it's one of those mediums that once you do the work, it's going to live on. It's not like you look at an ad that you place out there. As long as you're paying for it, sure, it's going to be there, but then it disappears. That it's going to work for you, month after month, year after year, as long as people are looking at. Granted, if you end up with that library of hundreds and hundreds of episodes, the impact of your first couple, well, they might not be as powerful as people are not necessarily going that far back in the archives. But it's still all about positioning. Yeah,
and even though the episodes might even be published weeks or months ago, if they like your show, they're going to go through your catalog. So I have a couple of super fans I want to give a shout out to, the founders of Rebel and Connect. So they are some super fans of my show, just soaking it all up. And they were digging through some old episodes, and they found one of my ads for my agency. And we ended up connecting that way. They were curious about getting a mobile app going. So it's really cool to have these roots out online that people are finding and enjoying and actually reaching out to you for.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful thing once people reach out to you for that, because they heard something in your message that resonated with them. Like, ooh, I want to know more about that. And that's what they do, which is powerful in itself, instead of what most people end up doing in terms of, let's say, your traditional networking, which is planting seeds, but that sphere of influence is limited. versus how can you cast a wider net and start attracting people to you?
Definitely. So I was very lucky to do that, and really by networking with my target guests, it's been amazing. I want to connect with as many young entrepreneurs as possible, and I've been able to do that. So I have tons of people that want to come on. And so something happened the other week that was a win for me. It wasn't easy, but so like I said, a lot of people were trying to come on, and shows that have some degree of popularity get pitched very often. I think EO Fire, it's like a less than 10% acceptance rate after application. Right. And so I wanted to create a resource so people could learn how to pitch podcasters in a way that they would be most receptive to the pitch. The week prior to that, I had gotten so many terrible pitches to come on my show. I knew something had to be done. So I just posted up on Facebook and I said, hey, do you guys want to learn how to pitch podcasters to get your name out? I've been getting some pitches lately that were not too good. And it ended up being like over 30 people were interested in this. So I knew I was onto something. And what I did the next day was I started kind of marketing it out even more before I created anything. I went around to different Facebook groups, posted in a few places, asked my email list, my group, if they were interested in getting this guide. And I ended up getting around 100 responses. So I decided to create the guide and then create a more extensive training on how to not only find shows, pitch them, but deliver good interviews that actually will grow your business. So I ended up creating an entire funnel that Wednesday, launching that out on Thursday, getting a bunch of opt-ins there, doing a live stream on Friday, advertising it out on Saturday, and started creating the full course content on Saturday as well. And then that Sunday, I had not gotten a single sale to the course, so I was really feeling kind of bummed. I decided to throw a Hail Mary. I emailed the lead list and I said, all right, guys, I'm looking for a few beta testers for this course. If you're interested, just reply to this email with this info and let me know. Right. And I ended up starting about 20 conversations that day with either people in my network, people on that lead list, and my goal was to fill 5 spots for a paid beta tester group. And I ended up filling all 5 of them. So it was really cool to see that I had validated, marketed, created, and launched this thing in 7 days and found a degree of success.
Yeah. And sometimes all it comes down to, it's just taking that action and that leap of faith. And you did something where most people end up stopping at, is if after they put it out there, they didn't get any sales. But you're like, well, no. So you got resourceful.
Yeah, I had to pivot. I knew something wasn't happening there. Like I knew I had, a handful of people visit the sales page. Nobody checked out. It said launch weekend pricing, this amount, ends on Sunday, and nobody was biting. So I was thinking, all right, how else can we start this conversation again? So I started asking for beta testers before I asked for any money. And I said, okay, yeah, just check out the course page and let me know if you think and if you want to go forward with it. So they would look through it. Those 20 people wanted to get in. I said, okay, great. There's still an investment for the beta testers. Here's what you get. And then just laid out all the benefits, the course, get some one-on-one support and this and that. And it ended up selling out those 5 spots out of the 20. So I was happy with it.
Excellent. And that's what it takes. It's just being willing to make that shift and not realize, or just get over it, that not everything's going to work the first time. Sometimes you have to make little tweaks to it. And in this case, it was being more personable with it, of asking people in that direct fashion, like, hey, take a look at this. Because sometimes if you think about it, with all the messaging, the marketing that goes on, people will look at a message and go, yeah, I know, I see that. I'll get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the difference comes into play is when it's more of a personal approach. Because now there's that direct connection with you. It's not just, here's an ad about it, yay. It's like, oh, well, he's asking me like directly. Okay, I'll take a look now.
Yeah, definitely. Because, it's obviously more important to me to go push this out and get people in. But people have plenty of stuff that they have to do, and even if they opted in, it doesn't mean they checked it out. So I did exactly that. I reached out personally, or with a personal style email to the lead list on my email list there. And I think one of the things to note about how I did this so quickly in 7 days was because of all the other skills I have stacked up in my time as an online entrepreneur. It came down to everything from creating the web pages for the course, creating the sales pages, writing the copy, making the graphics, having people know who I am, getting engagement on my posts. The email marketing setup, I whipped it out, super fast because this is something I do consistently for myself and my clients.
Right.
Running Facebook ads, doing a video, doing a live stream. Just all this stuff is things I have practiced for a long time, and I started out somewhere having zero skills with. And the thing I love about something like this is it's such a culmination of all the things that I have built up, and I was able to leverage all of those skills at once to make this happen.
Right. Now, then here's the big question, though. Is when you look at it now, since you've completed it, was like when you look at the web pages that you created for the funnel, were they perfect? Or would you have gone back and said, let me change this, and this, and do other little things to it now?
Not really. I mean, they were definitely not perfect. The course pages are crude. My PDF downloads are Google Doc with a course logo and some sections in it. Yeah. But it's all functional. It doesn't all look pretty. It's not the slickest sales page, but it's the content that matters and the functionality. So I knew I just needed to get something up and working that would be solid. I still edited that sales page, 5 or 6 times and strengthened it. But I was able to go through it so quickly because I had done this before for myself and clients, and I was able to just whip it out and say, all right, it's good enough.
Right.
Like my opt-in PDF, I use a tool called Beacon, and that makes a good-looking PDF for you. But it comes with like a little water stamp that says made by Beacon. I don't like it, but I don't care. I publish it. It works. Right.
And you said something that's really important, that good is good enough there. Because too many times you think about it as an entrepreneur, you want to make everything perfect. You think about all the classes you take in school along the way. It's like you're trying for the highest grade possible. You want to make it look great, which is counterintuitive to the entrepreneur world, where it's like, just get it done and then see if it works. If it works, great. Make it look pretty later.
Exactly. I'm a C student and I get it done, so I don't mind.
Right. That's the most important thing. It's that people don't think about. We just have to get into that mindset of changing how we do it and just get it done in the first place versus let me make sure that everything looks pretty. Because you think about how many great ideas never come to market because someone's hung up on, well, this doesn't look right. Oh, I need to change this opt-in form so it looks this way. And, oh, I need a better logo. And it's funny because when you think about it, how many times they're getting stuff like, I need to find a designer to get the right logo. Go to Fiverr, get one done, and call it a day.
Yeah, really. You can always change it later. Like I did my first one on Canva. Yeah. It took me 8 minutes and whipped it up, and I was fine with it. It works. Right. It's not $1 million design, but it looks good and it conveys what I need it to convey.
Right, exactly. Because if you don't have your message out there, it doesn't matter. Because I talk to people, and sometimes they're hung up like, well, we have to make sure the logo is representative of our brand and blah blah blah. Like, look at a company, let's say like Pepsi. Do you know how many times they've changed their logo over the years? It's not the same one that they first came out with. So it's okay to change it. It's just, we have to get past those perceptions that everything has to be perfect versus just get it done.
Absolutely. And sell it. You know, nobody's going to buy your stuff if they don't know it exists. So I had to get in front of, you know, first those 100 people that were interested, then the 50 people that opted in, then the 20 people that were interested in beta testing it, to get down to 5 that were paying me.
Right, exactly. And that's really the flow of a funnel, that it's you know, just because you had 100 people express interest in the beginning, it doesn't mean that all 100 are going to sign up at the end.
Exactly. And that was just for the free opt-in.
Right. So it's getting people to see that. And you have to understand that if you want to make 10 sales, depending on whatever it's going to be, you need to know the numbers. So that it might take getting exposure to, let's say, 500 people to get those 10 people that say yes. It just depends.
Exactly. Yeah. And for everyone wondering what this course was all about, it was the pitching podcasters. The freebie template was the 7 things you can absolutely not say to a podcaster if you want to come on their show. And then the next free part was the perfect pitch template that I use myself to get on shows and that I'm most receptive to as a podcaster. Then that funnels into the course, which is actually closed right now for the beta testing. But if you guys want to check out those freebies, you will end interviews definitely. And stay tuned for the relaunch of that in the next month or two. That is over at themillennialentrepreneur.com/pitch podcasters.
And that's a valuable resource because it's something that, you know, people really do need. As I thought, like, this is just a great timing for it because, you know, as people will ask me like, hey, can I be on your podcast? And then I look at what they're saying, I'm thinking, no, I don't want you near a microphone. Not just my benefit, but yours as well.
Yeah. So it's too bad because, like I said, the week before that, I got a ton of people pitching me. And I know even though a lot of them might have amazing stories, be building great businesses, be good guests, their approach just completely threw me off. You know, right. Podcasters are sensitive and we're picky. You know, right. If we're getting a lot of requests, we have to be selective. So I really created that template so you can learn how to stand out and speak to a podcaster in the way that they want to be spoken to.
Right. And that's so important because it's what you're passionate about. You just don't want to spend that time with someone that's going to waste you. Like, really? I can't get a refund on that hour of my time? Because all it takes is just that one interview and you just start making notes yourself. Never let this happen again.
Yeah, definitely.
What happens there? So you start developing those processes, those things that you're looking for. You know, what type of message does that person have? How are they coming across? What are they conveying to you? All those things to protect yourself.
Yeah, quick tip on that one for the audience. Do not mention your book tour in the first sentence.
Oh, no. You had someone do that to you?
A couple, yeah.
Wow. And that's where people, I think that they go wrong. It's more, they're trying to look at it's more about them. Like, no, it's not about them. It's about what value can you add first. Everything else comes after that.
To the audience, to the show, to the host, then you.
Right, exactly. Because you think about it, it doesn't matter what type of business you have, unless someone feels that you can help them. It doesn't matter what you're selling. Like, if you're interested in just selling your product real quick, get a late night infomercial and have pitchmen throw it out there. There's no relationship there. It's like, you want them to pitch this, you're signing a check, and they go pitch it. End of story. Versus building that rapport up.
Definitely. And, you know, as both of us being podcasters, we know how powerful it can be and how it can really open doors for people, bring in sales, increase people's authority. So you want to make sure you do it do it right and show up and give a great show and, you know, really just focus on serving the audience.
Right, exactly. The more you can serve the audience, the more powerful it is, because people then feel compelled to know more about who you are and not just, oh, okay, well, that was informative. And then that's it. Like, well, you kind of, I like to use a dating example. You know, your whole goal about being on the podcast is that you want to get to the second date with the people, so you want to have them reach out to you.
I like that.
Otherwise, it's like, well, it's great if it was a one-nighter for you, but it's not helping you long-term. So,
Definitely.
That's the switch that people have to make in their mind, is how do they build up such a rapport that they're going to want to take that next step each and every time, you know, someone listens to it. Like, oh my gosh, I got to know more. How can I do that? Versus, great, I'm just going to go skip to the next podcast because that was just kind of not what I wanted.
Yeah, and understanding that you have to be speaking to the right people on the right shows. You know, you could tell me the most valuable information about a topic I don't care about, and I would never tune in again or check them out. But when you put that topic on the right show with the right host and the right audience, it will take off.
Right, exactly. It's so critical. It goes back down to people need to understand their message and then realize that not every audience is right for that message.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you think about it, like, I mean, there's probably some people you've been approached by who think, that's a great story, just not for the show.
Yeah.
And that's where it misses out on. I think that's where people, and that's where your guide comes in, very helpful, of people identify what are those things they need to do before they press send on that email, or before they message somebody on Twitter, or however they're going to connect with that podcaster to make sure that it's the right fit.
Absolutely. And just like I asked you, you know, how can I serve the audience? And you said, tell them how you get on so many podcasts.
Right. Exactly, because it's when you look at how podcasting is growing, and it's of people wanting more user-generated content instead of it just being the traditional, here's your large publishers creating, you know, the podcast out there, and here's the other little thing you start thinking about. You look at the number of media organizations that now have podcasts because they realize how powerful it is.
Definitely. The big ones.
Right. When you can go into iTunes and see NPR having a podcast, like, oh, that's interesting. It shows of how things are becoming mainstream, where there was a time that it's like, really? You're going to have a podcast? No. But now?
Yeah, Slack has one. Buffer has one. I would love to come on those. I was checking those out the other day.
Right. So that means that anyone who's listening, if you have a connection to Slack or Buffer, Arnie would love to be able to get on those podcasts. So
yes, I would love that.
It's all about putting it out there, because if you don't ask, you're never getting it, right?
Exactly. And if they do have a connection, I am at Arne at themillennialentrepreneur.com. I will be super grateful, and I would love the chance to come on and serve the audience.
See, that's all it takes is putting it out there. So now, when you look at podcasting as a whole in terms of how it's helped you in your business, what are those next steps of where do you see your podcast going as it continues to grow?
Well, I've really kind of dialed in ways to grow the roots of the show. That means linking back to things like my Facebook group, my email list, some of the cool other free content I'm putting out, like that pitch template. And this is something I teach my clients too. You know, you have to have multiple touch points with your audience and figuring out what medium works best for them. So just because somebody tunes into a podcast here and there doesn't mean they're always listening to it. So they might want video content or articles or quick tips in their email, and really kind of strengthening those roots and growing the base has been my goal recently. And that helped me more than double the size of my group in the last month.
Oh, excellent. That's what you have to do. Once you get more and more defined it, and it's that maturation process as everyone goes through. It's like, oh, I need to refine this down to what that particular message is. And then it's just time? Because I'm sure you listen to or you think about the episodes you're recording now and compare it to when you first did them. There's a distinct difference between them.
They definitely differ. So especially at first when I wasn't as comfortable interviewing people, I had some scripted questions that I thought would be good and create good interviews, but it ended up coming out like a robot. So they're not all the best, and I've learned to just kind of go with the flow on them, have a few key ideas to talk about, a few key reasons people should check me out on other places to talk about, and just kind of strengthen it as a whole. And that's pretty much what I'm teaching people in the course that launched there, how to leverage that interview and make sure that those people come into your corner and your groups and your email list and your client list.
Right. And that's so valuable, because I think people start off in many cases with having it scripted to add a comfortability factor so they know what's going on. But just like I started the exact same way, and then I realized, well, that to me was kind of boring to ask the same questions over and over. Like, okay, let me ask this, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I'm going to make it more fun and dynamic. So other than asking what someone's background is, the rest of it just kind of goes with the flow. So even if someone says, but I really need to know the questions, if I could tell the future, I would be doing a podcast because I would have won the lotto several times over by now.
Yeah, that's something that guests need to think of when they're getting on shows too, is go in and do a little research. See if they have those questions they ask every time. See if they wing it. See what the host likes to talk about and how they like to direct. And then you'll be a lot more prepared to come on and deliver based on what you actually know, not speculate.
Right, exactly. And that's so valuable to just do a little research. Listen to an episode or two before you jump on that podcast. It'll give you a good feel for who that person is, what their interview style is, what's the overall flow of the show, what to expect. Is it going to be more structured? Is it going to feel like you're like in an interrogation, or is it going to kind of be more like you're sitting in a pub somewhere and having a great time?
Those are my favorite shows, really, where it seems like you're just sitting around the campfire with the guys, and you're just hanging out, and they're just cracking jokes. One of my favorite shows that does that is Podcast Bay by Scott Doucette. It's just a ton of fun. He always brings the best out of his guests, and they're usually hooting and hollering and laughing the whole time.
Right, and that's just. It's more natural that way. People enjoy it versus it feeling like what? Like, when you think about it, you're sharing an experience. So what is it that you want to convey to somebody? Now, granted, some things are going to be more informative, so you really can't do it in a lax environment. But if you can be able to mix the aspect of learning with having a great time, it's a great thing.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what Scott calls infotainment. And I love that on his show. I love that about my show and this show, is that it is a show, a chat, but there are tons of underlying messages that the smart listeners will be able to pull out and use themselves.
Exactly. It's much more valuable when you can pick up great tips through the conversation versus, and tip number 1 is XYZ. Like, I mean, even me, someone had to poke me, dude, wake up, man. Because it wouldn't be exciting. You can feel the energy when you're listening to a conversation, whether it's exciting, whether it's fun, or you're kind of like, wow, I feel like I'm at one of those college lectures that you thought, you just have to power through this class. You'll make it through, I promise.
Yeah, and I love the back and forths too. I've never done solo shows. I do some live videos, but I still like to chat with the people in the comments as I'm doing them. So the two-way dynamic is definitely keeps it interesting.
Exactly, and because then you can feed off of each other. Because if it's just a solo show, it can be quite the challenge, because you have to think that here's 30, 40 minutes, whatever you want to convey, and it's just being a topic you're talking about. There's no energy there. Versus when you look at, let's say, someone speaking on a stage somewhere, even though you're the only one talking, you can feed off of the audience in front of you because you can get the energy of the room, you can see the reactions of people's faces and so forth, versus, all right, and next up is blank. And you have to keep thinking to yourself, I hope they're loving this because otherwise this stinks. So you have to keep that momentum going. It's a really powerful thing. So now you have the foundation going and you have your course. What is it that you want people to truly know about you and the laptop lifestyle that you've developed?
Yes. So it's always been a goal of mine to be able to do this, and it's becoming a lot more of a reality. So it is really cool to see that really come to life. And I am currently planning out a trip to either South America or Spain coming up. And it's just amazing to know that that's a possibility. You know, I'm not super rooted in Seattle, so I can up and move and go join a co-working office in Medellin or Barcelona and meet amazing people and go hang out at the beach, you know, kind of ditch out on winter. And that's really the doors that entrepreneurship has opened for me. And I definitely attribute a lot of that to podcasting and networking and all the kind of the legwork that I put in.
Right, exactly. And it's having that clear vision, which makes it possible, because then it's that reminder of why are you doing those things? You know, if you think of what it took just to launch the podcast, and then as you're working with clients, sometimes the late nights and, you know, the headaches, like, oh, why didn't that work the way I was supposed to? It's because, you know the outcome you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And just persisting towards it, having consistent action is just amazing. You know, like I said, I was able to launch that course in 7 days, start to finish. But the many, many months and hundreds of hours of training that allowed me to do that is what opened the door. All the other failures that I had there, where, say, I didn't launch anything or didn't make a sale or scrapped a project, but I still built skills while doing it, that's all stuff you carry with you. So really that's what I like to talk about on my show a lot, is the journey and how people kind of rely on their experiences that they've had to get where they're going next. So I love the journey. It's a pain sometimes, but it is so exciting, and I would not give it up for the world.
Oh, that's excellent. So what is that one thing, if you can narrow it down, that people need to know about if they're really wanting to get their message out there on podcast that they need to do?
Network. Absolutely network. Like I said earlier, you want to make it as easy as possible for yourself to get on more podcasts. The hardest way to do it is cold pitch. You aren't relevant yet. So you have, one email or one tweet to try and become relevant. But when you start networking with other podcasters, getting on more shows, asking for introductions, you become way more relevant. The podcast community is small. It's so small. I went to research your show. I looked up your recent guests. One of them was Mark Mawhinney. Mm-hmm. And I actually interviewed him just this morning. So everybody kind of knows each other. It's kind of funny. So you just really got to focus on breaking into it, and becoming a sought after guest. People are going to see you in multiple places and say, okay, now I want them on.
Right. Exactly. It's just how it works because of that popularity, and you have to put in the groundwork. It's not going to happen overnight. You're just going to say, look, everybody, I'm here, and they're all going to come run at you. Like, well, no, you kind of have to network, put in the due time, build up the relationships, and then it happens. But it's different for everybody because it's all about how much work you put in.
Absolutely. And I find I invite on around half or more of my guests. And I find myself inviting people on when, first up, they're not pitching, when I have somewhat of a relationship with them, whether it's, a couple chats through Messenger or we've been friends on Facebook for a while, and I spot stories, and I see something that they have to say or something that they've been through that I want to learn more about that is relevant to what I'm up to. So for example, one interview I did with Colby K, it was great. I had been friends with him on Facebook for a little bit, and then one of his posts just caught my attention so much. He had posted up that he had bought a billboard with his face on it, advertising an event that himself and some other people were putting on, directly across from his past employer, where he had been fired from, where they had sued him, and now he's just killing it. He's doing all these amazing things completely out of the company, and his face was on this billboard outside of their office.
Nice.
So I said, all right, man, I gotta have you come on. Like, what happened here? And we just had a great chat about it and learn more about what he was up to.
Yeah. Now, that is an awesome thing, because you never know when you're going to have that guest that's going to truly make an impact with people. But it comes back down to building up the rapport network, because if that never would have happened if you weren't connected.
Yeah, definitely. And just by linking up with more podcasters on Facebook, you'll see posts of theirs. Every now and then they'll even do guest call outs, say, hey, we're filling up next month's shows. Do you want to come on?
Right.
Just stuff like that. It's simple, and it's all about proximity and positioning.
Right, exactly. That's always about. So now, as we wrap up here, Arne, how can people learn more about what you do and ultimately reach out to you, especially if they have that connection to Buffer or Slack?
All right. So the first spot would be my email, which is Arne, ARNE, at themillennialentrepreneur.com. Best place to come hang out and join a crew of over 500 other entrepreneurs is Millennial Entrepreneur Community on Facebook. We are posting up there every day, networking, getting to know each other and helping each other out there. Also, the podcast can be found at themillennialentrepreneur.com and the agency at giskebusiness.com. That's GISKE business.com. And I'm all over the place. I'm accessible. So just feel free to reach out, guys. I always love hearing from you. And if my story helped you out about all this stuff with podcasters and pitching them, make sure to grab that pitch template. It's over at themillennialentrepreneur.com/pitch podcasters. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope you guys learned a lot, and hope you come check me out in the other outlets I'm on.
Oh, definitely. I hope everyone does. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.